You are welcome to this presentation. I shall be presenting on understanding stages of PhD, and I'll be using University of Ibadan as an example. Understanding the stages of PhD using University of Ibadan as an example. I am Abayomi Daramola, a clinical psychologist. PhD program, as I'll be talking about the stages, is assuming that the person have applied. So we are talking about the stages after the application and admission has been offered to the candidate. These are some of the things that are expected of the candidates on the program. And kindly note that differences exist between different departments. The major first task for a PhD student once they come in is to do coursework. This coursework is not the same all over. Some departments don't offer coursework, but at the moment some offer coursework. So each of the students will be expected to take few courses. Usually the courses are not more than 9 credit units, which is 3 courses, or maximum of 5 courses, which is 12 credit units. Each of these courses might have 3 credit units depending on the department. So a PhD student is expected to pass at a level usually at 60% upward. So such a student will take coursework. Now another route of entry is MPhil/PhD. This also entails that the student will take a coursework during the time that the candidate is coming into the program. Expected that a coursework will be taken. After the coursework, the next stage the PhD student is going through is pre-filled seminar presentation, which is also known as the proposal. Now it is expected that a PhD student will go through at least 2 seminar presentations in the course of the program. So this seminar usually will be the first presentation depending on the department, but for some of the department you present to an audience. So some will start from a unit, from unit to the departmental seminar, but some will do departmental seminar. And also a little variance after the proposal presentation at the seminar, the next stage is pre-filled panel defense. Some departments do not have pre-filled panel defense, but for the department that run that system, meaning the candidate will present that proposal to a panel which will have the HOD as the chair, the supervisor will be there, 2 assessors, and the PG coordinator will be in that panel. So the candidate will present improved version of the proposal based on the contribution and observation during the seminar. So the candidate will move to this stage with an advanced level presentation. The next stage, which is applicable to those that came in through MPhil/PhD, they will do conversion panel exam. This panel exam is for those that came in for MPhil/PhD. For PhD students, this is not applicable. Those that came in for MPhil/PhD will do conversion. In the conversion, they will have the head of the department as the chair of the panel. They have an examiner from another department called internal external examiner, because it's internal within the university but it's external of the department. They will also have the PG coordinator will be in that panel. Also the subdean of the faculty will be present at that conversion exam. The supervisor, if the candidate have 2 supervisors, the co-supervisor will also be at that panel. Once a student gets through this presentation and the grading is done, a report will be submitted, and after that a letter of conversion to full PhD will be issued to such a candidate, meaning that candidate is now on a full PhD program. The next stage, once a student is done with that, for a student that need ethical approval, it's expected that that ethical approval is applied for before the first seminar. So such a student must have applied to different ethics committee that is applicable to that candidate, so that the ethical approval can be cleared. So once those stages are done with, the next is for field work. The field work is for data collection. That candidate is expected to go to the field to collect the data for the studies, which depend on the method used by the students, whether it is qualitative, quantitative, or mixed method. Remember that the proposer and the panel will have introduction stage, we have literature review, and we have methodology. Those are the stages that we will have in the proposal that were presented before, meaning that to look at what that proposal will contain by looking at some of the things that will be under the background of the studies will be in the introduction, problem of the studies, statement of problem, purpose and objective of the study, and relevance of the study. These are things that will be at the introduction. Then the literature review, we have review of different previous studies, empirical studies that have been conducted in that field. So these empirical studies will look at different literatures, historical, within the country, Nigeria, for example, within Africa and globally, so that it's extensive and deep review of literature. Such a candidate can also review different methods that have been used previously to justify the method he or she is going to use. Such a candidate can also review different theories that have been used previously in that place, and conceptual framework will be actualized in this same literature review. Then hypothesis to the department that as applicable based on the departmental model. The methodology, what will comprise the methodology? The methodology comprise of research design, the setting and population of the studies, the participants, the sampling size determinants, the sampling technique, the inclusion and exclusion criteria, the instrument that will be used for that studies, the procedure, ethical consideration. All this will be stated in that. That is just to state what is expected to be in the proposal. So once a student is done with the field work, which is the data collection stage, such a candidate will now do analysis of the data collected. So after the analysis is done, that student will be prepared for another seminar, which is the post-field seminar. Post-field seminar is the seminar that the student is coming to present what the students have discovered, the findings, and the implication for practice, for knowledge, for policy, and for advancement of the field. Those are the things that is expected at the post-field seminar presentation by the PhD candidates. Now, for some departments, they also have post-field panel, meaning the candidate will face another set of panel, which we have member of the panels as head of department, two assessors, PG coordinator, and supervisor. So such a candidate will present at post-field panel. Once a student is done with this stage, using University of Ibadan as an example, such a student will now move to a stage of abstract review. Abstract review meaning that the student will summarize the whole work to 4 paragraphs, which must not be more than 500 words. The name of the candidate will be there, the word counts, and the keywords will be there. So that will enable the student to learn the skill of summarizing the whole content of the work. Once that is done, and if the students came through that stage at the departmental level, the next is faculty review of that same abstract. That same abstract will be reviewed at the faculty level, which now have larger panel, people across the faculty. And once a candidate is done with that stage, it will now move to the next stage, which is the joint review by the postgraduate college and the faculty. Once the students get through this, the next stage will be ratification of the abstracts. Ratification of the abstract will be done at the PG college. At this stage of ratification of abstracts, student that scaled through will now be issued letter of title registration. Once the title is registered, it means that the candidate title, the working title, cannot be changed again. So that title becomes permanent title, which the student will use from now onward. It is also expected that plagiarism will be done. Currently, the university use Turnitin, and after the plagiarism is done to meet the minimum requirements by the university, a student will also do what they call depth of thesis evaluation. Depth of thesis evaluation means that an assessor will look at the work if that work is worth being awarded a PhD. So once that depth of thesis evaluation is done, a candidate will make the corrections based on the observation of that independent assessor, and that candidate will now subject that work to another plagiarism test. This time, because during the correction probably another material have been introduced, such a candidate will now make that correction to make sure that the work is still within the required number of similarity index allowed by the plagiarism. Once that is done, such a candidate will be issued certificate of depth of thesis to show that this thesis has enough depth to be awarded a PhD by the University of Ibadan. Once a candidate is done with that stage, remember we are using University of Ibadan as an example, such a candidate will now be prepared for the final defense, viva voce. So preparation for this stage, there are a number of things that will be done administratively by the departments and the faculty to prepare the students. First, they will appoint the examiners, and those as examiners have to meet certain criteria, and this will be evaluated by the faculty and it will be forwarded to the postgraduate college to verify. And once they verify that the external examiner from another university and the internal external from another department meets the requirements, then they will approve them as member of the panel. Once they are approved, they will be issued letter that they will be issued as appointment of examiner. Once they are issued letter and they are accepted as member of the examiner panel, they will receive draft of that thesis. They are expected to go through that draft and to write reports. So they will write, each member of the panel will write report. That report will now inform preparation for the dates of the real examination rather. So once the candidate is examined, a candidate will now be asked to effect correction and submit the corrected version. Once that candidate is done with correction is going to sign certification of correction. Certification of correction we now have a date, and that date will be the effect dates. On that will now be date that will effect that the candidate completed the PhD program. The next thing candidate will do after that is going to subject the work to another plagiarism check, because in the process of correction probably new material has been introduced into the work. So such a candidate will now do the final check of plagiarism, which will now shows the level whether it is above the university stipulation or not. Once that is done with, the next thing a candidate is expected to do is to submit hard copy of his work. So hard copy of thesis will be submitted to the appropriate office as directed from time to time. Once the candidate is done with that, the next thing the candidates now have to start preparing for convocation. So these are some of the stages a PhD student is expected to go through, using University of Ibadan as an example. Some universities have a model that is slightly different from this. Some have 6 stages which are slightly different from this. We'll discuss that in another discussion and presentation, but for this we are just using that as an example that is used in University of Ibadan. Thank you very much for following, and if you have other details, questions, then you can drop your questions so that we can follow up with that. Thank you.